On July 4, 1969, at 9:45 p.m., in Benicia, California, a young couple, Michael Mageau and Darlene Ferrin, were brutally ambushed in their car by the Zodiac Killer. Their screams pierced the night air as they were fired upon by a masked gunman. The sound of bullets echoed through the deserted parking lot of Blue Rock Springs Park. In a desperate bid to escape, Michael Mageau sped away, leaving Darlene Ferrin for dead. The Zodiac Killer disappeared into the darkness, leaving behind a cryptic message that would haunt the police for years to come. As we stand here, imagining the scene, the night air is thick with the scent of blooming jasmine, and the sound of crickets provides a haunting backdrop to the chaos that unfolded. The parking lot is dimly lit, casting long shadows across the pavement, making it seem like the darkness itself is closing in on the victims. The distant hum of the highway provides a stark contrast to the eerie silence of the park. A lone streetlight casts an otherworldly glow on the scene, illuminating the horror that lies before us. The sound of rustling bushes and snapping twigs fills the air, as if the very trees themselves are trying to keep this dark secret. Michael Mageau, now a survivor of the Zodiac Killer's brutal attack, describes the gunman as a tall, thin man with a hood over his head and a black mask covering his face. His eyes are fixed on the spot where his friend Darlene Ferrin lay dying in the car. The gunman's voice is low and menacing, sending chills down the spine of anyone who dares to imagine it. He's a master of stealth, a ghost who appears and disappears in the blink of an eye, leaving behind only terror and death. The killer's presence is almost palpable, as if he's still lurking in the shadows, watching and waiting. Witnesses report hearing the sound of a car speeding away from the scene, and the distant rumble of a motorcycle in the opposite direction. Some claim to have seen a figure fleeing the area, but no one gets a good look at the killer's face. The few who did see him are left with a haunting image, but it's one that won't be etched in their minds forever. Their descriptions are vague, but one thing is certain: this killer is a ghost who seems to vanish into thin air. They heard the sound of a woman screaming, and the faint sound of a man shouting. If you are looking for a killer, there are probably many men who fit the description. The first responders arrive at the scene, and they're met with a horrific sight. Darlene Ferrin is lying in a pool of blood, her body riddled with bullets. Michael Mageau is shaken but alive, and he provides the police with a cryptic description of the killer. The officers quickly take control of the scene, securing the area and beginning the investigation. They gather evidence, interview witnesses, and start piecing together the events of that fateful night. Their search for justice has just begun, and it will be a long and arduous road. Before we go further, hit subscribe and the bell. We post new cases every single day. Let me take you back to the very beginning of this story, to the events that led up to the night of July 4, 1969. It's a tale of obsession, of madness, and of a killer who would stop at nothing to claim his victims. We'll explore the life of the Zodiac Killer, and the events that drove him to commit such heinous crimes. We'll delve into the minds of the detectives who hunted him, and the cryptic messages he left behind. And we'll uncover the shocking truth behind one of the most infamous serial killers in American history. In the early 1960s, the Zodiac Killer, now known as the Zodiac, was a relatively normal man, working as an electrician in Vallejo, California. He was a father of two, and by all accounts, he was a devoted husband and family man. But beneath the surface, something was brewing, a dark and malevolent force that would eventually consume him. He began to send cryptic messages to the police, taunting them with his crimes, and bragging about his abilities as a killer. These messages, some of which were printed in newspapers, would become the hallmark of the Zodiac Killer, and a key to unraveling his twisted psyche. The Zodiac Killer's letters to the police and the press were a clever ruse, a way for him to manipulate the investigation and play on the emotions of the public. He claimed to have committed numerous murders, but only a handful of them were actually confirmed. Despite his boasts, the Zodiac Killer's true number of victims remains a mystery to this day. His motives were unclear, but one thing was for sure: he was a master of the dark arts, a serial killer unlike any other. The Zodiac Killer's reign of terror lasted for over a year, leaving behind a trail of bloodshed and despair. As the investigation continues, we'll examine the cases that the Zodiac Killer claimed to have committed, and the evidence that supports or refutes his claims. We'll look at the various suspects who have been accused of being the Zodiac Killer, and the theories that have been put forth to explain his motives. From the cryptic messages to the gruesome crimes themselves, we'll take a deep dive into the mind of a killer, and explore the psychological complexities that drove him to commit such atrocities. We'll also examine the impact of the Zodiac Killer's crimes on the families of his victims, and the community at large. The Zodiac Killer's case is a chilling reminder of the dark forces that lurk in the shadows of our society. The Zodiac Killer's crimes were not just heinous, but also seemingly random, targeting victims at random and striking fear into the hearts of the public. He claimed to have killed 37 people, but only 7 of these murders were confirmed, and only one of them was a confirmed Zodiac Killer victim. Despite the uncertainty surrounding his true number of victims, one thing is clear: the Zodiac Killer's crimes were a manifestation of his own twisted desires and fantasies. He was a master manipulator, using his letters and codes to toy with the police and the public, leaving behind a trail of confusion and terror. The Zodiac Killer's case is a fascinating study in the psychology of a killer, and the ways in which he used his crimes to exert control over the world around him. As we continue to unravel the mystery of the Zodiac Killer, we'll explore The Zodiac Killer is an infamous unsolved serial killer case that took place in Northern California during the late 1960s and early 1970s. The killer's identity remains unknown to this day. The central figure in this case was a man known as the Zodiac Killer. He was estimated to be between 25 and 40 years old at the time of the crimes. His exact age and identity were never confirmed. Little is known about the killer's daily life, but it's believed that he was a working-class individual who held a steady job and had a family. He was likely a resident of the San Francisco Bay Area, which would have given him access to the region's highways and streets where the murders took place. The killer was described as a loner who kept to himself but was able to blend in with society. His occupation remains a mystery, but it's thought to be something manual labor or related to the service industry. It's also possible that the killer was a former veteran or someone with experience in the military. Despite the horrific nature of the Zodiac Killer's crimes, he managed to present himself as likable and relatable to those who knew him. He was described as being charismatic and intelligent, which made it difficult for investigators to pin down a specific identity. Some people who claimed to know the killer described him as a family man who was devoted to his loved ones. However, these claims are difficult to verify and may be nothing more than a ruse to throw investigators off the scent. It's also possible that the killer was suffering from some form of psychological disorder that made him more prone to violence. The killer's relationships with those around him are a key aspect of this case. It's believed that he formed close relationships with his wife and children, who may have been unaware of his dark secret. He also seemed to form friendships with co-workers and acquaintances who didn't suspect him of being a serial killer. The killer's relationships with his family and friends made it difficult for investigators to narrow down the list of suspects. As we'll explore in the next part of this series, the Zodiac Killer's relationships may have been a key factor in his ability to evade capture for so long. The months leading up to the Zodiac Killer's crimes were marked by a sense of calm and normalcy. The killer appeared to be living a routine life, and there was no indication that he was planning anything out of the ordinary. However, some experts have suggested that the killer may have been suffering from some form of psychological distress or anxiety during this time. The exact nature of this distress is unknown, but it may have contributed to the killer's eventual descent into violence. As we delve deeper into the case, we'll explore the theory that the Zodiac Killer's crimes were motivated by a desire for notoriety and attention. The first warning signs that something was amiss in the Zodiac Killer's life may have emerged in the form of subtle changes in his behavior. Some people who knew the killer reported that he became increasingly withdrawn and isolated in the months leading up to the crimes. Others noticed that he seemed to be taking on a greater interest in occult and dark culture. Despite these warning signs, investigators at the time seemed to be unaware of the impending danger. It's possible that the Zodiac Killer's crimes were simply a matter of circumstance, rather than a deliberate attempt to harm others. But as we'll explore in the next part of this series, the evidence suggests that the killer's crimes were anything but random. The fact that the Zodiac Killer's crimes went unnoticed for so long raises questions about who was responsible for ignoring the warning signs. Was it the police, who failed to connect the dots between the various crimes? Or was it the killer's family and friends, who seemed oblivious to the danger that lurked among them? As we dig deeper into the case, it becomes clear that the Zodiac Killer's crimes were not just a matter of individual responsibility, but also a symptom of a larger societal problem. The answer to this question remains a mystery to this day, but one thing is certain: the Zodiac Killer's crimes will continue to fascinate and horrify us for generations to come. The case of the Zodiac Killer is one that has captivated true crime enthusiasts for decades, and for good reason. The sheer scope and brutality of the crimes committed by this mysterious figure are nothing short of astonishing. But as we delve deeper into the case, a more disturbing question begins to emerge: what if the Zodiac Killer is still out there? It's December 20th, 1968, and the sun is setting over Northern California, casting a warm orange glow over the suburban streets of Vallejo. The weather is crisp, with a gentle breeze rustling the leaves of the trees lining the quiet neighborhoods. The city is quiet, with only the occasional sound of a passing car breaking the peaceful atmosphere. As the day comes to a close, families are beginning to settle in for the night, unaware of the horror that is about to unfold. The streets are dark, save for the occasional porch light casting a beacon of warmth and safety. The events leading up to the crime began earlier that day, with a sense of normalcy that would soon be shattered. David Faraday, 17, and his 16-year-old girlfriend, Betty Lou Jensen, had planned a romantic evening drive to Lake Herman Road, a secluded spot with a breathtaking view of the surrounding landscape. They had been dating for several months and were eager to spend some quality time together. As they drove through the quiet streets, they couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement and anticipation for the night ahead. Unbeknownst to them, their evening would take a tragic turn. At approximately 9:55 p.m., the couple pulled into the parking area of Lake Herman Road, eager to take in the stunning view. As they sat in their car, they noticed a figure approaching them from the darkness. The figure, later identified as the Zodiac Killer, was armed with a .45 caliber handgun and a sinister intent. He began to circle the car, his eyes fixed on the couple with an unnerving intensity. The victims were completely unaware of the terror that was about to befall them. As they sat frozen in fear, the killer opened fire, raining bullets down on the unsuspecting pair. The most shocking detail of the crime is the brutal and inhumane manner in which the killer struck. The Zodiac Killer shot David Faraday once in the head at point-blank range, effectively ending his life instantly. But what's even more shocking is the way he treated Betty Lou Jensen. The killer shot her multiple times, including a fatal wound to the head. As the couple lay lifeless in the car, the killer took the time to reload his gun and shoot Betty Lou once more, a senseless act of brutality. This heinous act would be just the beginning of the Zodiac Killer's reign of terror. The first person to discover what happened was a passing motorist who noticed the couple's car parked on the side of the road, the engine still running. As he approached the vehicle, he was met with a scene of unimaginable horror. He called the police immediately, and officers were dispatched to the scene. The investigation that